Hey there, folks. I'm Mark, in affiliation with Spectrum Pulse. And what is this, the second normal week in a row? 'Cause it's Billboard Breakdown. I don't remember. Alright, we're coming into the home stretch of this Billboard year, and somehow we got another week of relative normalcy in a row. Yeah, I'm about as surprised as anyone, especially as worldwide, or even just in Canada, there was a Blackpink album bomb. Honestly, I'm a little bit surprised it did not go further stateside. But instead, let's just look at our top 10, where As It Was by Harry Styles is still at number 1. And seriously, this is starting to get ridiculous. We all know that at any other time, this is a number 1 that would get unseated, but its competition is just not breaking through with a strong enough margin. Take Bad Habit by Steve Lacy at number 2, where it rules streaming and it's making up ground on the radio, just not enough to also eclipse the sales margin. Instead, we're stuck dealing with the likes of I Like You a Happier song by Post Malone featuring Doja Cat rising to number 3, which has legit radio momentum, but just can't close the streaming gaps, and thank God for that. Then there's the next closest radio contender with Sunroof by Nicki and Daisy at number 4, but it has an even wider streaming margin, so it's not breaking through, although it did hold over Super Freaky Girl by Nicki Minaj at number 5, which is slowly making up the radio margins, but just not enough to get past the losses in sales and streaming. Unfortunately, You Proof by Morgan Wallen is squatting at number 6, making up its radio margin and holding strong on streaming, and again, this is a track that hasn't been shipped to pop radio yet. It could still have more gains coming. Then there's I Ain't Worried by One Republic picking up to number 7, even as its radio growth slowed down to a crawl. And then we got a breakthrough into the top 10, The Kind of Love We Make by Luke Combs at number 8, which saw a big streaming pickup to go along with stable sales and radio, although let's be real, some of this is due to About Damn Time by Lizzo getting rotated back on the radio to number 9. Finally, there is Wait For You by Future, Thames and Drake at number 10, but even though the radio is rotating this out as well, the streaming is still ridiculously stable. I do not see this falling off, which naturally takes us to our losers and dropouts. And in the latter category, not a lot here, with Provenza by Karol G comfortably clinching a year-end list spot, and Sticky by Drake being borderline at best. Thank God for that. Then there's the losers, which outside of Detox by Lil Baby continuing down to 84, there's not much that really surprises me. Hot Shit by Cardi B, Kanye West, and Lil Durk continues down to 94, probably prepping for that big planned single with Glorilla to do more. Like I Love Country Music by Kane Brown slid down to 83 because it's comfortably clinching its year-end list spot, which is probably the same case for Ojitos Lindos by Bad Bunny and Bomba Estéreo. Then Talk by Yeet fell back to 77, and most notably, Big Energy by Lotto, Mariah Carey, and DJ Khaled slid down to 40, where it looked like it's on its long overdue exodus. Now for our returns and gains, of which we got a decent amount, but I'm still kind of mixed on them as a whole. In the former category, I'm not really complaining that Pick Me Up by Gabby Barrett once again is back at 90, but I'm not really pleased to see Wild as Her by Corey Kent at 92, or Billie Eilish by Armani White back at 69. Wait, since when did he get radio traction? Who is bankrolling this guy in the industry? It's the same question I'm inclined to ask in some of our gains when I see persistent growth for Romantic Homicide by David up to 34. Although in that case, it looks to be some streaming thing, unlike Don't Come Lookin' by Jackson Dean up to 60 thanks to all the Music Row support. Then off the returns, Cuff It by Beyonce picked up more traction virality to 61, and Wait in the Truck by Hardy and Lainey Wilson rose to 80. But outside of that, Steve Lacy's getting a proper push for Static up to 82. Until I Found You by Steven Sanchez rose up to 59 because the radio is finally getting on board. And then streaming got on board for Whiskey on You by Nate Smith, which caused a spike up to 50. Someone's check just got cleared here. This sort of abrupt jump doesn't normally happen on streaming for mainstream country songs, especially for relative no-names. And Pink Venom by Blackpink got a boost off the album to 57. One of only 2 boosts this week, and we'll get to that. But now onto the matter at hand, a pretty small list of new arrivals, starting off with number 98. Backstage Passes by ESTG featuring Jack Harlow.
Don't take no pics and don't add me. I'll take you to the show to meet Jack. These girls will do anything for some backstage passes.
You know, I think at some point I was supposed to get the hype with ESTG, but it hasn't really happened yet. So when he put out a new project, I wasn't sure how much impact he was gonna have. Turns out we got the one song with the Jack Harlow feature, and hell, I would argue it's more Jack Harlow's song. He's got the opening verse, half the hook, and even the final words, where even ESTG is setting it up for the girls to be meeting Jack Harlow. And while I think this sort of bassy, pulsating minimalism and fizzy percussion can kind of work for a sleek vibe, this is not one of Jack's better verses or performances. Daycare in her throat, man, come on. And ESTG still has the problem where an okay flow is muddied by him dropping in his ad-libs, overlapping the verse in an awkward way. Granted, his flexing is utterly generic, so while I do not dislike this, mostly because I like Jack Harlow more than most, I know I would have little reason to seek this out. Next, number 95, Dark Red by Steve Lacy.
Don't give up on me. I belong with you, only you, baby. Only girl, only you, baby.
Okay, let me get this straight. Steve Lacy has multiple songs picking up traction from Gemini Problems, and yet now folks are going back to his work from 2017 off the demo tapes for cuts to go viral. Now, I'll give him this. The production does have a shaggy, lo-fi sensibility in the warmer guitars off the bass and live drums. It makes the synths and some of the vocal blending sound rough, but the softer blending kind of makes sense in a hypnagogic pop lane, which kind of works for a song where it's all about second-guessing your own suspicions that you're about to get dumped by your girl. Now, I still don't really like Steve Lacy as a singer. He sounds even like less of a presence, even that's convincing here. And the song does feel kind of messy, but it's a draft with more that I like in the sound and progression overall. It's less polished, but I think it works. Number 93, Love in the Way by BLEU and Nicki Minaj.
Just do a little 1, 2. It hurts to love again, and it's all because of you.
Alright, can someone explain to me this mystery of Nicki Minaj's rollout plan? I know she's got a project coming, but it feels like through all the singles that have mostly worked this year, we've got no trace of an actual release, and it's starting to get stupid. It's one thing that she and Cardi now have in common that's a big problem for the both of them. Now, you might be thinking that this is more of BLEU's song, it doesn't matter. And my response is that if this moves at all, it's gonna wind up on Nicki's album regardless. It's happened before. But anyway, this is fine. I'm not exactly wild about the washed out Sam Tompkins sample that sounds like they couldn't get James Blake with the Afrobeat patter and a bassy mix that makes me think they're trying to get for some of the drill crowd as well, as BLEU drowns out an auto-tune and tries to grapple with the frustration at the back and forth relationship, with Nicki Minaj dismissively blowing through all of it given his lack of attention and cheating, where she's very much done with all of it. And as much as the song is supposed to be set up as a morally ambiguous back and forth, Nicki doesn't really provide that level of complex vulnerability. She's done with all of this, she's kind of justified for it, and it leaves the song feeling really unbalanced. It's not exactly bad for it, it makes the struggle feel futile, the sadness a bit more real, but it's not exactly good either. I'd say take it or leave it. Number 91, Hell Yeah by Little Big Town.
Going through hell, yeah. Going through hell, yeah. You moved on and I'm still here in hell, yeah.
You know what frustrates me about this song? It's that there was actual potential here. I didn't mention this one directly when I reviewed Mr. Sun by Little Big Town, but it's indicative of the problems with the entire album, with the chintzy acoustics, the sandy percussion, the weirdly canned-sounding vocals, and a goddamn whistle that's all supposed to create that beachy vibe where it's all just peachy. And that's the trick. It's set up like Jake Owen's Life at the Party. The protagonist got dumped beforehand, but it's putting on a smile to go out and party while inside he's going through hell. That is a premise that's proven to work. It might even feel more realistic when you're stuck with the Jimmy Buffett knockoff in the production like this, especially when the vocal harmonies are still good. But something doesn't work here. and I think it might be the age gap. Jake Owen was in his early 30s making bro country 10 years ago, but he sounded a lot younger, and that worked to his advantage. You believed he could power through even when facing intimate reminders of that heartbreak, whereas everyone here is older and sounds older, and this sort of dazed sloppiness is just way less appealing in that demo, especially with that fucking whistle. So no, I don't really care for this. Not precisely a bad song, because there's a central conceit that mostly is executed well, and the harmonies are good, but goddamn, the failure on potential is just so disappointing. Number 62, Evergreen by Omar Apollo.
Tears me to pieces. Doesn't even have to try.
I feel like I should recognize the name Omar Apollo from some of my contacts in R&B, but truth be told, he's got a more interesting story. He's queer, he sings in both Spanish and English, he pulls on some Latin music, and has some pretty interesting industry connections in R&B, with a credit on Joji's album Nectar, which is where I recognized his name. And with him dropping his debut album this year, I was intrigued to see where he was going with this single now getting the push, and yeah, there's a lot to like. The gentle guitars, the live drums, the touches of horns fleshing out the mix that creates a really smooth, blissful, organic vibe. This is very much a style of R&B that I like, and with Omar Apollo reminding me a bit of a cross between Perfume Genius and Steve Lacy, it's a quivering but emotionally evocative tone that I think works pretty well, especially with the messy emotions of heartbreak playing through a song trying and mostly failing to move on. Hell, even the Chipmunk samples are mixed deeply enough into the mix that they don't get annoying. That's a big plus. So yeah, overall, this is a win. Damn good song. Hope we get some traction. And finally, number 25, Shut Down by Blackpink.
It's black and it's pink once the sun down.
And this is the other Blackpink song that's making noise this week. Again, I'm a bit surprised that there's only one, but maybe the band's having a tougher time breaking into the US market compared with the rest of the world. Then I listened to this and I started hearing all the problems and maybe the reasons why, because a cut like this showcases their stark limitations. Now, part of this is how the track coasts so much on flexing and attitude without much in the way of deeper wit, and it's just so limiting for this group. It makes them come across as one-dimensional. But then there's the production, which leans very heavily on a sample of Paganini's Second Concerto with the super elegant strings married with trap percussion that honestly sounds kind of dated, and it comes across as more haughty and stiff than imposing. Yeah, the hook on this song is better overall than Pink Venom, not hard, but the songs have the same underlying concept and similar problems, in that the arrangement poorly fits all the bravado. Honestly, it just kind of reminds me more of when Disney tries to reverse engineer a trap beat for made-for-TV movies for a villain song, and I'm sorry, this doesn't work at all. And yeah, Shut Down by Blackpink is the worst of the week for me. I mean, it's not terrible, but it seems equipped to give me a headache in record time. I mean, it kind of already did. Best of the week, yeah, Evergreen by Omar Apollo pretty much runs away with this. Although I will say I like Dark Red by Steve Lacy a lot more than I was expecting. Next week though, yeah, still looks pretty quiet outside of a couple really big singles. One from Cardi B and Glorilla that I already mentioned, one probably from Lil Nas X, and one from Sam Smith and Kim Petras where I can tell the discourse is going to be just a living hell. Stay tuned for that. But until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Billboard Breakdown, affiliated with Spectrum Pulse. And I'll see you next time.